أهلا بكم مشاهدينا لهذه الحلقة الجديدة من مستقبل الطاقة. هذه عناويننا. خلف أرقام الإنتاج القياسي الأميركي الأخيرة تختبئ ذروة النفط الصخري. والرئيس التنفيذي لمؤسسة البترول الكويتية يرى بأن الفائض في سوق لقيم الإيثيلين يبلغ 15%. استمرت الولايات المتحدة بتسجيل مستويات قياسية جديدة في الإنتاج النفطي في شهر سبتمبر الماضي، وذلك للشهر الرابع على التوالي بحسب البيانات الشهرية الصادرة مؤخرا من إدارة معلومات الطاقة الأميركية. جاء هذا النمو في الإنتاج بالرغم من المخاوف المتزايدة حيال تشكل فائض من الإمدادات في السوق، والتي ضغطت على أسعار النفط ليسجل خام برنت انخفاضا بنحو 15% منذ مطلع هذا العام. فقد نما الإنتاج الأميركي من النفط الخام والمكثفات في سبتمبر بنحو 44 ألف برميل يوميا مقارنة بأغسطس، ليصل إلى المستوى القياسي الجديد البالغ 13 مليون و840 ألف برميل يوميا. إلا أن الرقم القياسي الرئيسي هذا يخفي في طياته بعض التحولات الهيكلية بين المناطق المنتجة للنفط داخل الولايات المتحدة والناتجة عن التباطؤ الملحوظ في نشاط الحفر والتنقيب هذا العام. فقد شهدت ولاية تكساس انخفاضا في إنتاجها خلال سبتمبر للشهر الثاني على التوالي بتراجع شهري بلغ 30 ألف، ليصل إنتاجها إلى 5.8 مليون برميل يوميا، وهو ما يعتبره البعض مؤشرا على اقتراب حوض البيرميان، الحوض الصخري الأكبر، اقترابه من ذروته، حيث أن التباطؤ الحاصل اليوم في تكساس يشابه نمط التراجعات المتواصلة منذ سنوات في أحواض الصخري الأخرى الناضجة مثل حوضي باكن وإيجل فورت. لكن لماذا إذن استطاع إجمالي الإنتاج النفطي الأميركي تسجيل نمو في شهر سبتمبر؟ السبب هو ارتفاع الإنتاج البحري من خليج المكسيك الذي ارتفع إلى أعلى مستوى له منذ فبراير من عام 2020 عند 1,983 ألف برميل يوميا. هذا إلى جانب نمو الإنتاج من أجزاء أخرى من حوض بيرميان الواقعة في ولاية نيو مكسيكو، الذي ارتفع في سبتمبر على أساس شهري ب50 ألف برميل يوميا ليصل إلى 2,350 ألف برميل يوميا. ولكن بعض المحللين يرون بأن نمو الإنتاج في نيو مكسيكو لن يكون قادراً على تعويض حجم التراجعات في الأحواض الأخرى، لا سيما مع تباطؤ نشاط الحفر، ويشيرون إلى أن خليج المكسيك سيشهد كميات نفطية أقل تدخل الإنتاج في العام المقبل 2026، ويؤكدون بأن التراجع التدريجي والمتواصل في إنتاج تكساس، وهي أكبر ولاية منتجة للنفط، لا يمكن تجاهله، حيث يدلل ذلك على تباطؤ المكاسب الإنتاجية من عمليات رفع الكفاءة. فهل سيشهد عام 2026 ذروة الإنتاج الأميركي من النفط الصخري؟ خلال منتدى جيبكا السنوي للبتروكيماويات والذي عقد هذا العام في البحرين، قال نائب رئيس مجلس الإدارة والرئيس التنفيذي في مؤسسة البترول الكويتية الشيخ نواف الصباح إن ما يمر به قطاع البتروكيماويات عالميا ليس تباطؤا مؤقتا بل تحولا هيكليا، وأوضح أن تراجع معدلات التشغيل يضغط على الأرباح ويدفع نحو تصحيح مؤلم في السوق، كاشفا بأن فائض معروض لقيم الإيثيلين يبلغ حاليا نحو 15%.
Let's move on more downstream now. Given that we're in JIPCA, a lot of the people here, and I see a lot of current and ex-Petchem leaders in the crowd here today. In JIPCA last year, probably, you were here as well, people were thinking of 2025, maybe this is the year we're waiting for a recovery in the petchem industry. This did not materialize. What are the reasons of this downturn? And do you think it's more structural than cyclical this time? And what do you think, how long do you think we're going to be able to chip away at this excess overcapacity? How long would this process take?
Well, I think last year my view was this was a structural shift in the market and not a cyclical downturn. The reason being that you're seeing the overhang in ethylene supply. There's a massive buildup in ethylene capacity. And the overhang in the market is somewhere around 15% right now. That's really quite large. When you look at it, needs to get cleared out, and that has taken run rates in those facilities from the usual 90% plus to below 80%. And when you're running your facility at below 80% capacity, there's really no profit to be made, if any. And you're seeing a lot of, as His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman from Saudi Arabia says, a lot of herding going on. And that's happened in the petchem industry. He was talking obviously about the oil industry. But in the petchem industry, we're seeing that, and we're seeing that the net effect of that then is that you're going to have to take off oversupply. And that oversupply, from our estimates, translates to about 20 or so world scale crackers that are going to have to leave the market. And that's going to hurt quite a bit. And it'll hurt those who are disadvantaged in feedstock, disadvantaged in price, and disadvantaged in location. Luckily, we in the Gulf, all the way through the Gulf, have all of those advantages. We've got the gas advantage and the feedstock advantage, we've got the naphtha advantage as well. We've got the location and the cost structure. But I think a big query out there will be obviously China, as it always is, whether you're talking about oil demand or even petrochemical demand. If you look at Chinese growth, and here I'm looking at a normal 5% growth in China, that translates to over 1 million barrels of extra petchem demand and into the future between now and 2030. But cut that in half. If Chinese economic growth is not at 5%, if it's at 3%, for example.
5% is the target, and it seems to be a little bit out of reach.
Well, that's the thing.
In the short term.
5% is the target. So if you model 3%, then you're talking about somewhere around half of that incremental demand, maybe about 40% of that incremental demand evaporating. That makes a huge difference in the capacity and the prices, obviously.
نتوقف مع فاصل قصير نتابع بعده في مستقبل الطاقة. مشاريع الطاقات النظيفة في الخليج بدأت تجذب اهتماما أوسع من قبل المستثمرين الدوليين. أهلا بكم. بالرغم من الفتور الذي يشهده مؤخرا الاهتمام الاستثماري في مشاريع الطاقة النظيفة عالميا، إلا أن تلك المشاريع في الخليج تشهد تناميا في اهتمام المستثمرين الدوليين فيها، حيث أقام بنك جي بي مورغان على سبيل المثال الشهر الماضي جولة ميدانية لعدد من عملائه المستثمرين المؤسساتيين على مشاريع الطاقات النظيفة في السعودية. فما هي العناصر الجاذبة للاستثمار الأجنبي في هذا القطاع الواعد؟ لنتابع الإجابة مع مديرة تقييمات مشاريع البنى التحتية لدى S&P Global صوفيا بن سعيد.
I would say there is a clear structural shift happening in the Gulf energy landscape, and investors really see it. The region has demonstrated a strong ability to translate ambitious national energy strategies into large-scale projects. In fact, these countries are running some of the world's largest renewable and storage tenders, which provide scale, visibility, and long-term contracted revenues. And so, backed by clear policy direction, ample capital, efficient permitting, and a proven ability to execute complex projects quickly, the GCC has really become a key destination for energy transition investment. I would say that another factor and an important one is really the region's strong institutional framework. There is now a very well-established project finance model supported by highly creditworthy state-backed off-takers that ensure predictable cash flows. And governments also play multiple roles as off-takers, shareholders, and regulators, shaping project structures and procurement frameworks. So I would say that this integrated role of the state helps align all project stakeholders, creating confidence and reducing risk, which is very attractive for institutional investors looking for stable infrastructure type returns. So altogether, it is really this mix of policy clarity, credibility, and execution capacity that explains the elevated investor interest we're seeing today in the GCC clean energy.
Sophia, one of your recent reports suggests that battery storage has become a central pillar to this GCC transition grand strategy. What is essentially driving this? And has the share of renewable energy in GCC power systems reached a level that requires storage capacity in order to efficiently integrate any further growth in renewables, or does it reflect a deeper intentional change in the future system design?
I would say it's really both. I mean, a technical need and a forward-looking design choice. The share of renewables, especially solar, is rising rapidly across the GCC, but governments are not waiting to reach a high penetration level before acting. They're being proactive, integrating storage early to build grid flexibility before intermittency becomes a constraint. And we've seen in some European markets, like Spain, for example, that adding large amounts of renewables without enough flexibility can create curtailments and even grid instability. The Gulf, wants to avoid that. So batteries here are being deployed proactively, not reactively, to make sure renewables can scale smoothly while keeping the grid stable and reliable. So I would say it's really part of a deliberate shift from fossil fuel pickers toward flexible, low carbon, dispatchable systems. Storage is really now viewed as essential infrastructure for energy resilience and efficiency, not just as a backup solution.
Maybe give our viewers a bit of a background on the current operating capacity of storage in the GCC and how much is expected to be added in the pipeline.
Maybe let me start by saying that battery storage deployment globally is entering a period of rapid expansion, and the GCC is very much part of that story. By 2035, global capacity could be almost 18 times higher than in 2024, and the MENA region is on track to become the 6th largest market worldwide, driven by large-scale tenders and ambitious policy commitments, with Saudi Arabia and the UAE leading regional deployment. Now, zooming in on the GCC, operating capacity today is still modest in absolute terms, but the ramp-up is very, very steep. Saudi Arabia alone targets around 48 gigawatt-hour of battery storage by 2030 and has already moved from pilots to full-scale execution. The Bisha project, commissioned in January 2025, earlier this year, became the world's largest single-phase energy storage system, completed in just 11 months. So a clear demonstration of the kingdom's execution capability. And storage is also being integrated into landmark development, such as the Red Sea project and NEOM green hydrogen. In parallel, the national utilities have already launched several large-scale tenders with delivery scheduled over the next 2 years. And the UAE is also moving very fast, led by Masdar's large-scale solar plus storage program in Abu Dhabi and the next phase of the Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park in Dubai, both designed to supply clean energy on a 24/7 basis. So I would say that while installed capacity remains limited for now, the contracted and tendered pipeline is world scale, and the region is really moving fast from construction to commissioning.
Mm-hmm. The deployment of batteries, how is it, moving along with battery storage costs, which have gone down in the last couple of years? But how much of a drop in technology costs are we talking about here? And does it compare to the fall in, say, solar technology costs that we've witnessed in the last decade or two?
Yes, absolutely. And maybe just to set the context, battery costs have effectively fallen dramatically by over 80% in the past decade, largely because of the mass production of electric vehicles. Utility scale battery systems use essentially the same lithium-ion cells as EVs. So as global EV manufacturing scaled up, it drove major economies of scale and a steep learning curve that spilled over into grid applications. Now, in terms of prices, in Saudi Arabia's recent tenders, reported battery prices were around $72 per kilowatt hour, compared with the global average of about $165. If we include full engineering and construction, turnkey costs are now closer to $120 per kilowatt hour, about half of what they were only 3 years ago. And so if we compare that trajectory to solar, to respond to your question, PV module prices have fallen by nearly 90% since 2010, bringing generation costs to below $30 today. So battery storage is really now following a very similar path. And combined solar plus storage systems have dropped from around $230 per megawatt hour in 2017 to about $59 today, closing in on natural gas parity and making dispatchable clean power truly competitive.
Is it possible for solar PV plus storage to eventually assume a more baseload role in grids? And what ramification would that have on the eventual final energy mix and the grid ultimately?
Absolutely, and that's exactly where things are heading, actually. With 4 to 6 hour battery systems now being deployed, solar power will increasingly be able to provide energy beyond daylight hours, making it functionally closer to baseload capacity. And Masdar's recently announced project in Abu Dhabi is a great example of that. Once operational, it will deliver 1 gigawatt of continuous 24/7 clean power, effectively replacing part of conventional baseload generation. And similar projects across the region are actually designed to test this hybrid model, combining renewables with large-scale storage to achieve round-the-clock reliability. And I would say that the implications for the grid are really significant. It means renewable energy will not just cover daytime peaks, but start addressing evening and night demand, reducing reliance on gas-fired peaker plants. It also enhances grid stability and energy security, especially as demand for AI data centers and industrial users continues to grow. That said, some degree of conventional baseload will still be needed, mainly for system inertia, to keep the grid physically stable and for frequency control.
How are governments and government procurement targets and policy specifically supporting a rapid regional deployment at competitive costs, Sophia?
So that's an interesting question and a very important one, because the environment counts a lot and procurement frameworks have really been a key success factor in the region. the GCC has refined the independent power procurer model, combining transparent tenders with long-term offtake contracts, usually with state-backed buyers such as the Saudi Power Procurement Company, if we think about Saudi Arabia. And what also stands out is really the clarity of the vision and the quality of the investment environment. Governments across the region have set clear capacity targets and technology-specific standards supported by creditworthy sovereign off-takers and predictable policy frameworks. So altogether, this creates a very bankable environment, one that attracts large-scale institutional capital. For instance, Saudi Arabia's tender for 4 500 megawatt, 2 gigawatt hour battery projects drew over 30 pre-qualified bidders. A strong sign of investor confidence and competitive pricing.
Finally, how does Saudi Arabia's serious undertaking of utility-scale battery storage allow for greater domestic resource optimization? And what are some of the wider economic positive spillovers of this into other economic sectors?
Yes, so battery storage is actually really helping Saudi Arabia optimize how it uses its own energy resources. By deploying large-scale storage, the kingdom can effectively reduce the amount of oil it burns for electricity during evening peaks, freeing up those barrels for export or for higher value uses in petrochemicals and industry. And on the wider economic side, if we think about it, we're also seeing strong momentum building around electric vehicles, as I mentioned before. Effectively, EV demand in Saudi Arabia is rising fast, and several manufacturers are already setting up local assembly plants, with the next step likely to be local cell manufacturing. So once those cells are produced domestically, the same supply chains and technology can serve both EV batteries and utility-scale systems, utility-scale storage systems, of course, creating a really powerful synergies. And that actually builds local expertise, attracts foreign investment, and strengthens industrial integration across energy and mobility. So I would say that ultimately, battery storage is not just about clean power. It's really about industrial diversification, technology transfer, and long-term energy sovereignty under Vision 2030.
بهذا نصل إلى ختام هذه الحلقة من مستقبل الطاقة. دائما تابعونا على إكس تحت هاشتاغ مستقبل الطاقة. شكرا لكرم المتابعة. إلى اللقاء.